Hello, this is Tyler Hernandez for ETL 684. This is my Week 1 assignment, The Effects of Learning Styles and Culture on Education. A little bit about me before we get started. I am currently a full-time teacher. I teach at a private school in Southern California. The subjects that I teach are physics, engineering, and computer science. So some of the strategies and experiences I'm going to be referring to throughout this are related to those subjects and that experience. So let's get started. There are four main learning styles that are typically acknowledged, those being visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic. Personally, I tend to identify as primarily an auditory learner with a secondary mode of learning being a visual learner. So I do well with things that are explained to me and with seeing things. I don't tend to like reading about things or writing things or doing things a little bit, but to a much lesser extent than seeing or hearing somebody explain something to me. Here is a chart from VARC, which is an organization which seeks to generate data to better educate educators about learning styles and hopefully allow us to better accommodate the needs of these various styles in the classroom. The VARK are abbreviations for the various learning modes, and interestingly, it also shows what portion of the population are bimodal, trimodal, or benefit from all four modes. They don't really identify with one or the other. I'm going to be relying heavily on this data going forward throughout this presentation. So the first learner we're going to talk about, or the first learning style, is going to be the visual learning style. Traditional lecture style lessons tend to cater to these learners. Lectures do really well at providing for the needs of visual learners and auditory learners. Visual learners benefit from things like seeing notes on the board, seeing a teacher act out or make gestures as they're explaining something, watching videos, or seeing visual demonstrations of material. In order to accommodate visual learners in my classroom, I do all of these things. I am very animated. I have lots of YouTube videos that we'll watch or visual presentations where I'll shoot a cannon or crash a cart into another cart or something along those lines to provide something for the visual learner to see and associate with the knowledge. And approximately 22% of all learners identify primarily as visual learners. Here's a little visual for the visual learners. These are kind of some characteristics of visual learners or things that might help you identify a student who is a visual learner. So students who tend to make lists or take detailed notes, or they really like charts, or they really identify well when they see a demonstration, those might be clues that a student tends to be a visual learner. The next style of learning, or the next learning mode we're going to discuss, are auditory learners. And this is what I primarily identify as myself. So auditory learners do really well when they hear the material, either dictated to them or explained to them by a teacher or through a presentation or a video of some sort. They do really well in group settings and while listening to verbal presentations. Another interesting thing to point out about auditory learners that's not true of myself is that they tend to like music or do really well when they are taking in information accompanied by some sort of rhythm or music. Personally, I identify as an auditory learner, but I am one of the few people, I think, in the world that just don't like music whatsoever, which is a really interesting problem for me. But let's go on. Approximately 26% of all learners identify primarily as auditory learners. This is a graphic where the frequency of a word correlates to the size of the word. So when talking about auditory learners, things like good and group and verbal tend to show up, or loud, or groups or notices or information. These are things that tend to be associated with auditory learners. So for those of you paying attention at home, you might realize that we've only discussed 48% of the population being either primarily auditory or visual learners. Now, these are the learners whose needs are best met by the traditional teaching style, that being a lecture-based course. If we include multimodal learners, those who learn well from different types of learning or who experience different learning modes themselves, that number increases to around 82%. Meaning, for about 82% of the population, traditional lecture-style methods do quite well for them. But if you look at the 18% that's missing, that means about 1 in 5 students are not particularly well suited to learning from traditional methods. Now, personally, I identify as a visual and auditory learner, so lectures worked perfect for me. I identify well with those students, I relate to them. I did quite well in school because I do quite well listening to and learning from lectures. But my experience as a visual and auditory learner does not mean that my students who may be other types of learners will do just as well, given the same strategies used in their courses. Alright, the next style of learner we're going to discuss are the reading and writing learners. These are the students that you tend to find buried in a book. They do well with textbook assigned readings or with handouts. They like to copy notes verbatim and refer to them later or look at them multiple times. And they're excellent at following written instructions. I have several students this year who I have to slow down my lessons and allow them to copy everything on the board as it's written, because they like to be able to then go back and look at their notes. It's not sufficient for them to just paraphrase or listen to the lecture. They like to have the notes copied down for themselves in their own notebook. And this is approximately 24% of all learners, who primarily identify as read-write learners. Some good strategies for these learners are having lots of supplementary resources or various outlets for them to express their learning rather than just having tests. You could have essays for them to write or things of that nature, and providing them with the material through different sources of reading as well as videos, because it is also beneficial for them to see and hear things, but allowing them to read from maybe primary source documents or from textbooks or journal entries could be really good strategies for these types of learners. So here's another list of some strategies. Encourage them to make lists or convert visual materials into words and statements using handbooks or handouts, textbooks, technology, and lecture notes. Things like this do really well for read-write learners. And then the fourth main mode of learning are kinesthetic learners. This is the one I probably identified least with. Kinesthetic learners are students who do well by using their hands and really getting into the material. They learn by doing. They like to get their hands dirty and build things or create. They don't really do well just hearing the information or seeing the information. They have to experience it firsthand. One kind of clue that someone might be a kinesthetic learner is that you might see them fidgeting or having to be doing something all the time rather than just listening while you're lecturing. I have a student who doesn't do particularly well in the heavy academic classes at our school. However, I know that he's currently building an electric car in his bedroom because he doesn't have a garage to work on it, and he is learning concepts of physics and electrical engineering and applying them. And that's how he's learning, by actually doing, by building the circuits and by working on the transmission or the drivetrain. He is learning through doing. And this is about 28% of all learners, and this is probably the learning style that's least suited to a traditional lecture style environment. These are some characteristics of kinesthetic learners. They tend to be slow talkers, or they learn by doing. They like hands-on approaches. They maybe are fidgety, or they take breaks in their studying. And it might appear that they have short attention spans, when really they just need to be doing something that hearing material dictated to them is not really effective to their learning style. So what does this data tell us? It tells us that we as educators need to incorporate various strategies into the classroom when trying to suit the needs of these various types of learners. If a particular strategy that you're using in the classroom is not well suited to all types of learners, well, then you're going to need a supplemental strategy to accommodate those learners who maybe aren't well addressed by whatever your primary strategy was. I would say it's a good rule of thumb to assume that you have all types of learners in your classroom. And if your strategy only affects or is well suited to 3 of the 4 strategies, well then the 4th one is going to need a separate strategy just for them. Because we can't just assume that meeting the needs of the majority are sufficient. Now, these learning strategies aren't the only influence on learning in the classroom. Everyone's heard the phrase nature versus nurture. Well, nature would be our learning styles, how our brains are wired. And nurture would be the cultural influences in our lives that have gotten us to where we are today. And those also affect our ability to learn. So I'm going to address 4 main issues, or cultural influences on learning, those being language, social norms, socioeconomic status, and relationship norms between children and adults. So in the United States, we tend to focus on language as the primary cultural influence on learning, and it is a very large one, but it's not the only one. Students for whom the language of the school is not their primary language need special considerations and accommodations. It's not fair to assume that they can do just as well if we don't give them the resources to kind of make up for that lack of fluency. So special strategies need to be utilized in order to accommodate these students. But one big problem we have here in the States is that we assume that once we meet the language need of a student, that's kind of the only effect culture has on learning. And as educators, we feel like we've done our job, and we kind of pat ourselves on the back if we stick a student into an ESL tract, when really that's not the only influence, and that's not just the tip of the iceberg. There are other things that we also need to consider when addressing cultural effects on education. Here are some of the main ones I wanted to outline, but there's many more. There's social norms, socioeconomic status, and experience with adults. So, many different cultures just have different values, ideologies, and beliefs, and these can affect a student's ability to interact with or engage in a classroom. And they may struggle fitting in or receiving information in an environment that's just strange or illogical to them. Socioeconomic status is another big factor. It's a huge predictor of career success, but it really doesn't have to be. And teachers and administrators can do a better job of meeting the needs of socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Personally, I can speak from experience here that when I was a young student in North Carolina, I was socioeconomically disadvantaged. I was one of the students who had free lunches. I didn't have new clothes every year. I didn't have new toys or I didn't have all of the school supplies I needed. But I was very fortunate that the school that I went to did a really good job of meeting my needs. And that experience hasn't hampered me in life, but that's not the case for all students. I was the exception. And we as educators need to do a better job of making that the norm rather than the rare success case. And then experience with adults is another thing I wanted to address. Many cultures have this idea that that kids should be seen and not heard. And it's going to be really difficult for children who have grown up hearing that or believing that to then go and engage with adults and be active participants in the classroom. So it's going to take particular strategies by the teacher to find a way to get those students involved and engaged in the classroom. These are just a few cultural impacts on learning. There are a myriad of others as well. So in summary, I kind of discussed 4 main learning styles: visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, and I also discussed some cultural influences on learning, things like language, social norms, socioeconomic status, and relationships with adults. As educators, this just shows that there are many different factors that we need to take into account when preparing lessons for students. We can't just look at our material and come up with an idea. We need to ask ourselves if it's meeting the needs of the diverse needs of all of our students. And if not, we need to find a way to meet those needs better. Thank you very much. Here are my resources.